Well, friends, it's lovely to be with you again. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute once more. My gorgeous wife Julia said she observed long ago that if I'm asked back more than once, it's usually only to apologise for what I'd done before. But I do hope that you will stay with me as I talk about something that has helped me think. Yesterday, Angus Taylor from Australia was here. He, like me, in London in a suit, perhaps looks a little disguised because we've grown up in remote parts of a big land where we had to learn very early on a sense of self-resilience and take on board a willingness to work to achieve those things which we could best do for ourselves and what we couldn't with our families and with our neighbours, and to be cautious about trying to push things upwards all the time. And in my many years in public life, one of the things that saddened me was the way in which so many constituents would come to see me, and they would have any sort of a problem under the sun that always seemed to have an answer that began with the government's gotto. So with those opening remarks, let me surprise you a little, I suspect, by saying that it is not so much the individual that I believe in, and nor do I particularly want to praise governments that see the most basic social unit in terms of mere individuals. I think a wiser view of society actually recognises the basic social unit in terms of persons and persons in relationship. Perhaps first and foremost, persons in families. And I think good governments, and we're spending a lot of time on what that might look like, will be made up of leaders who understand this and serve on that basis, for as John Donne had it, no man is an island. We are all parts of a greater continent. Persons are not mere matter to be moved and moulded or bundles of desires to be satisfied. Well-informed and engaged citizens, given the right conditions, are more likely to work together to gain the basic goods that all people long for, strive for, in a sense I think are made for: health, creativity, knowledge, love and relationship, a sense of self-integrity, of leisure, satisfying work, of life, the pursuit of meaning itself. The extraordinary scholar and Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Dr. Abraham Kuyper, back in 1898, I think at Princeton in the US, described government as a stick beside the plant to hold it up. Now, bear with me. I'm not making some statement about statism as a desirable objective. In Kuyper's simple but illuminating metaphor, the plant is society. He noted, though, that without the stick, by reason of the plant's inherent weaknesses, especially in its early growth stages, the plant would fall to the ground. Kuyper is saying that it is the plant that is alive, it's the plant that bears fruit, not the stick, necessary as the stick may be. The stick exists for the flourishing of the plant, though it's important to note that the stick equally has the potential to hinder or strangle the plant as much as it does to help it. So, what is society? Surely it's a collection of smaller, spontaneous associations of persons, each, or with each association, having its own unique goals, structures and rules. And Kuyper called this sphere sovereignty. The principles and goals of one form of association cannot dominate over all the others. Sphere sovereignty is not about one association having power over others. Rather, each association is sovereign in its own sphere, working towards its own goals. As Kuyper said, each association is animated with its own spirit. The family for the loving raising of children, charities for community welfare, universities for knowledge, I hope, hospitals for health and life, business and economics for the meeting of our needs for prosperity, artists and musicians for beauty, places of worship for communion with the Almighty. Herein lie the elements, I put it to you, of a coherent and a cooperative society. Dare I even suggest to you a healthy and right nationalism, because I think such a thing does exist. The term subsidiarity comes from the Latin subsidium, and it means help. The principle of subsidiarity teaches that the state exists to help free associations, not vice versa. And civil associations, not the state, are ordinarily best placed to help with yours and my needs. And I believe that the responsible citizen will not willingly transfer responsibilities to the state for things that he or she can do for themselves. And correspondingly, I think that the wise leader in government will respect the primacy of the responsible citizen and exercise forbearance from taking power to do what the citizens could do and should do best for themselves. In a 1931 papal encyclical, Pius XI, I understand, said that where possible we should avoid assigning, I think these are very good words, to a greater and higher association what lesser and subordinate organisations can do. And if we combine his insights with the former Dutch Prime Minister Kuipers, we can see that the purpose of the state is surely best seen as being to help spontaneous civil associations to flourish so that they in turn can help individual citizens flourish. Persons taking responsibility for themselves and in turn in groups from the base up, not some version of the other way around. Now, given the complexity of any societies, the problems that inevitably arise will be complex. And there are many reasons, I think, to prefer subsidiarity over unilateral centralised management. It seems to me self-evident, really, that central governments and bureaucracies are usually ill-equipped to directly solve local problems. They are far removed, usually, in understanding and sympathy and sometimes geography from the local context. But subsidiarity, by contrast, offers people an opportunity to be active and to take responsibility in their communities, which in turn strengthens the individuals who take that responsibility and generates stronger community bonds, a better community to live in. Kuiper's idea of sphere sovereignty emphasises the importance of these various structures and associations being able to govern themselves. The help offered by the state towards societal associations needs to respect sphere sovereignty. This is very important. And therefore the four foundational freedoms that I touched on the other day, which are, as I see it, freedom of belief and conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of association, and the freedom to exercise sovereignty over your property rights, including your intellectual prowess, if you like, in the marketplace. These are crucial to ensuring that these associations can maintain fidelity to their own principles of operation. Now, we often think of society in solely vertical terms: governments over citizens, citizens under government. I don't think it's a good way to think, but that's the way we often do it. I want to say to you, it's crucial that we think horizontally as well if we want to understand the conditions needed for social thriving. And the horizontal questions might include: how do we relate to one another as citizens? Do we see our fellow citizens as mere competitors for finite resources and status, and individuals whom we have rights claims against. For subsidiarity to work, we need a revival, not merely of civic rights, but I have to say to you too, of a re-engagement by citizens, a stepping up to look for our civic duties, to accept them, to be virtuous citizens. We need a movement of persons who show up. I touched on this on Sunday night. We're living in the age of disengagement. People are disengaged. I understand why many of them feel they're not wanted in the public square, but can I say to you, that's all the more reason why we are needed in the public square. We need people who will support these institutions and associations that already exist to help community. Many hollowed out because they've not been well enough peopled, not felt that their sphere of sovereignty is respected, but they're still there. And so I think we need civil society entrepreneurs now more than ever. This is my plea, to be engaged, to man your station. As Konstantin Kissen put it so well yesterday, these are serious times. We're involved in a serious, if you like, moment. We all need to look for our stations, but as on any battlefield, we need to be looking around to see if there are other stations we can help with or even man ourselves. And can I say to you, in this country, I think of the incredible work of the person who's to follow me up here. Many of you will be thinking, we'll get off, the sooner the better, because it's Catherine Berbelsing. Now, her schools, I suspect all of you have heard of them. If you haven't, you're in for a treat. They teach children not only the knowledge skills required to do in modern society, and you know, Wembley Stadium, it's not perhaps the place where you'd think of kids making it into Britain's top universities. I put it to Catherine, she must be powerful of those who has. She says, no, I'm more delighted for the kids that might have never made it at all as functional human beings, that are out there with good trades, living meaningful lives as constructive members of British society. What a right priority and an admirable priority that is. But she also seeks through the school to instil in them a sense of responsibility, independence and gratitude for traditions. She said to me once, I know our kids are going to be involved in the history wars, the cultural wars, so how about we make sure that they understand what British history actually is first so they know what they're debating? Seems like common sense to me. Now, we must realise, I think, that the two basic institutions that will generate responsible citizenship and make subsidiarity possible, with all of its desirable qualities for us, are firstly strong families and then schools that are centred on educating people in the context of the pursuit of truth, of virtue and of gratitude. Because resentment and hubris are two of our worst emotions. And our young people today are told that they are victims of oppression. At the same time, ironically and paradoxically, they're told they can be superheroes and save the planet. And as we know, this is not ending well for them. And nothing upsets me more than to see what we're doing to our young people. I'm with Konstantin yesterday when he said, how dare we do some of what we're doing to our children and our grandchildren. So accordingly, can I say to you, the great sacrifice of responsible citizenship requires the better narrative that ARC is dedicated to. Each person must know that he or she plays an important role in an important unfolding story. And without this powerful narrative, subsidiarity cannot work. We, of course, in our culture have had a great narrative. And its great and historically transformational second commandment, if you like, is to do unto your neighbour as you'd have them do unto you. Love your neighbour as yourself. It's an interesting call, it's an important one, but it's also steeped in reality. This radical proposal that's been so fundamental to Western civilisation also acknowledges one's natural starting point, which is love for self. It entails a vision for rightly serving one's own interests in hand with a radical posture of charity towards others. And it's this aspiration that best animates, surely, the flourishing society. Not the individual selfishly as an end in himself, but the person starting by taking responsibility for himself or herself and being ever drawn to serve the other. This posture plays out in all manner of ways, not least in the establishment and maintenance of the plethora of institutions that should stand between the person and the state in a healthy society. And when the person is responsible for themselves, then turns to the other, I think they'll be naturally drawn to serve family, join a club or a political party or a charity, to contribute to organisations that help others with all of the benefits for themselves and others. And as long, can I say, as individual autonomy is elevated as the ultimate human right, even the apex of virtue, the bitter harvest of identity politics, of social atomisation and encroaching state overreach will continue. And so, as well as simply turn up to serve in the many different spheres of compromised society, responsible citizenship needs to be expressed in the protection of sphere sovereignty from the impositions of the state and other threats, so that these institutions may indeed flourish and provide the various kinds of subsidy and help that we all need. And I take it that's why we're all here today. Catherine's about to come to the stage. I leave you with this thought. She, to me, embodies that most incredible quality that's so attractive in another person. It's called generosity of spirit.